Trying to log in.
Let's have a look. Right, let's just check. We are live. Hopefully, I'll just check the page. Even though I know we're usually live, Dave. Let's check we're coming through. There we go.
I'm still currently authorizing security access.
There we go. We are live. Awesome. Let's pull up the chat, and we hope all is well. Let's wait for a few more Evertrekkers to join. Here we go. We are hydrating well today.
We are hydrating well, and I'm going to say that it wants me to sign up and pay to join the Tuesday tune-in. I think that's a little unfair considering everyone else gets to do it for free.
That is hilarious, isn't it? But yeah, it's good to have you back.
No, yeah, mate. It's been surely it's been over a month now, isn't it? I haven't been on a TTI.
I know.
But
pre-Christmas.
Oh, I've missed it so much. There was a time when I was skiing in the Alps, and I thought, oh God, I'm going to miss the tune-in. Why aren't I there?
No, it's good to have you back, mate. Good to have you back. Thanks to all of you who's joined us again as well. I know we good to see some regular faces. Angus, Carl, Marky V, Simon. 2 Simons. Here we go.
2 Simon. I can't say hello to anybody yet because I
know.
See the screen. Really.
Can you see that one there?
Just about, yeah. But I think I'm.
You're almost
working.
there.
I think it's
good
working.
Man. We got Alison, David Squire. Yeah, good to see you on, guys. Graham. Yeah, if you have just joined us, as you are joining us, always good to see who's here.
Voila.
Here we go. You good now? He's back.
I'm good.
He's
I'm
back. Finally.
Now I'm back.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We wanted to. Obviously, Dave's back this week.
Yeah.
Always good to create a conversation. And essentially, after the Couch to Killy live training session we had last Wednesday evening, which was awesome. Thanks to anyone that joined me. I know there's a lot more new Evertrekkers because it's kind of tailored to more beginners. But all you Evertrek vets, I know a lot of you have already done that. But anyway, off the back of that, there was quite a lot of themes around, adventure travel and danger. And I know we've covered lots of this off before. Especially in the beginning, kind of 12, 18 months, we covered a lot of these type of things. And so I thought we'd go back to that, Dave, and we can talk a little bit about, what adventure travel is, what encompasses that, especially the altitude and trekking.
And the scary bits.
The scary bits?
Yeah, if you get chased by a Yeti, you go outside at night for a little a whittle. And next thing you know, you've got a mountain Yeti chasing you. You're going to be frightened.
Carl says, "Who's the new guy next to you, Andy?"
Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm sounding quite right yet, so I do apologise if I sniff or a bit.
You sound healthy to me. It's like you're literally at altitude.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Yeah, this is it. Actually, this is a good representation of what it's like when you're at Gorik Shep. Everyone's a little bit snivelly, a little bit tired, a little bit cold. But,
so we've literally plucked you from Gorik Shep into Evertrek HQ.
Yeah.
So you can tell us how it feels
to do one quick live and then back up there.
Good stuff. I think I'd like to start with any adventure travel, any trip, anything that you're going into. I think it's always useful to recognise the risks.
No, yeah, 100%. And I think that's what risk is what makes adventure travel. Otherwise, it would just be travel. Right, so
that's very true.
When you want to book a holiday, you want to go to a beach holiday and you book it as a package with a reliable firm. You know that everything's going to happen when it says it's going to happen, and there's no risk. But that doesn't always appeal to the adventurer in your heart, because there's a reason why people sign up to do things that they might fail.
Exactly.
Why would most people, it's no challenge to run a mile, but it is a challenge to run a marathon.
I don't know, it's a challenge to run a mile at the moment.
Yeah, and that's true. But whether that challenge be, will I complete the marathon or will I complete it in this time?
Yeah.
Failure is always a possibility, and that's what makes it exciting. And that's what gives you the drive and the determination to sort of tackle dangerous things. It's the same with the type of travel that we do. You want to go to Everest Base Camp or Kilimanjaro, you're going to be heading to extreme altitude in a far-flung region of the world you've never been to before. There's a chance you might not get to the top. There's a chance you might not get to base camp. It's exciting.
It is, and that's what makes it.
And I guess we'll dive into why people might not make it.
Exactly. And we talk make it as in they come back. It's safe.
Yeah, 100% of every customer has made it.
Touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood.
Not this banana.
Yeah.
Got a banana here. I don't know. I won't start eating it mid-live, I promise.
Yeah.
Diane, good to see you on here. Lord James, he's back. James, not seen you for ages. I hope life is treating you well. Nice to see you pop up on the live, mate. Sarah Partridge, nice to see you here. Pratesh.
Yeah.
We got some people who'll be new to the community and some Evertrekker legends as well.
Sarah nearly didn't make it.
But she did.
Oh, she did, yeah. Yeah, she had a roller coaster of a ride, that girl.
Was that out on the way to Everest Base Camp?
I was on the way to base camp, yeah, and
Awesome.
turned back to support a friend, very admirable. But yeah, then managed to turn it back around and complete the trek. So yeah,
Karma.
bit of an epic. That's what I think. You're rewarded for helping your friends and doing the right thing by by people, gathering around you, saying, "Well done, you did an awesome thing." Now we've got to get you back up there.
Exactly.
And the mountain gods, allowed it.
Hello, Rich. Hello, Sheila. Diane, Island Peak is definitely going to take me to my limits and beyond. Yeah, and we'll cover that as well, because I think comfort zone limits. It's good to talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And how to approach it. And a lot of you guys are doing this already, so I know we're kind of preaching the converted here. But to any newbies, obviously, it's good to explore those things. And you hit on something as well, actually, that I had in my notes.
Oh,
and I know you haven't read them because they're not readable to anyone else but me.
Not decipherable, yeah. All of them, where my notes are hidden behind my laptop, you can't see them.
They're very hidden.
They're hidden,
like almost invisible.
Yeah, almost invisible, yeah.
But I've got here, turning back is sometimes the right call. What you said is that, we've seen it countless times. Luckily not as many as people who make it, because that's obviously the goal. But naturally, getting back down is the number one thing that you should be aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's difficult because I think naturally, whether through our upbringing, whether it's through education, our life, our experience, a lot of people are quite competitive by nature.
Yes.
I think, and they don't want to not succeed.
No, yeah,
it's a difficult thing to turn around. I know. Obviously, talking from experience, we've all had to do that.
Yeah, no, and it is a very difficult thing to do because people on the high peaks call it summit fever, but I think for us it's more than that. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. People don't want to confront what they deem as failure.
Yeah,
and turn back, and a lot of people will feel like, if not embarrassed, but almost like, I told everyone I'm going, and now I'm not going to make it. But actually, you've got to just park all of that baggage because none of it is relevant. The most important thing is I could touch on a few things there. I spoke to a customer a while back that said, I've told so many people I'm going, I'm worried that I won't make it. And I felt like, well, hang on a minute, all of those people still sat on their armchairs back at home. You've already won by getting on a flight, by flying across the world and for trying.
Yeah.
And
absolutely,
you never have this perspective at the time. I've turned back on a high peak and watched my friends carry on up, and I've gone the other way, and it is heartbreaking. However, what you don't get at that exact moment that you will have afterwards is the perspective of, do you know what, that's a hell of a story.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we all love to hear the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time. There's never turned back. There's 100% successful at everything they do. But honestly, how relatable is that?
James.
Yeah. But when you speak to someone who says, it took me like 3 attempts and then I finally did it.
Yeah.
That teaches the vast majority of us more important lessons about resilience, about not giving up.
Yeah.
Because we can all strive to be the greatest of all time, but almost certainly most of us won't be.
Yeah.
That spot is reserved for usually one person. But the amount of spots reserved for those that are tried their hardest, achieved great things over and above what they would have done anyway.
Yeah.
That's something we can all learn from. And you'll be that person when you come back. You can say, yeah, I tried and I failed. But you know what? I'm alive. The mountain ain't going anywhere and I'm going to go back.
I like it, Dave. It's super important, isn't it? That I think you're right. There's, we've all got that bit of ego or pride amongst us. We're human beings. We naturally have those little bits, those little voices kind of telling you, no, you've got to do this. You've told everyone now. You don't want to let them down. You've got all these things that are pushing you, and it's hard sometimes to let go of that and realize, actually, I do need to turn around here. It's this is probably a bit too much for me right now. But like you said, it's for later. It's the lessons you've learned whilst turning around, and that and turning back is the right call sometimes.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard, but I always think to myself, when I was on Tukal and I didn't turn back, I could have maybe pushed on and got to the summit and made it back. But what I would have learned for that experience, that I dodged a bullet, that I squeaked by and got back by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
You don't learn anything from that. The only thing you should have learned is that you shouldn't have bothered. You should have done the safe thing, turned around, gone back, and been like, provided a lesson for those people that want to follow you. That it's not all about reaching the top. It's about the experience. And the experience is not something that's one and done. It happens, it stays with you, and it accumulates over time. So when you look back at your experience, you'll say, do you know what? I summited this many mountains, and I'll tell you what, I turned around on 2, and I'll tell you why. That's a more valuable lesson than, I did 10 mountains and I summited them all.
Exactly. And it reminded me of Ed Vista's No Shortcuts to the Top.
Oh, yeah, great book.
I really highly recommend anyone reads that. Ed Vista's is American. Did a lot of his climbing on Denali, or whatever it's called now, because I heard apparently it's changing names, but it's still Denali to us. Is that, he goes to the mountains, all about fitness, all about those decision making, all about planning as well. And I know we're talking mountaineering now, not necessarily the trekking, but anytime you're altitude, is an element of danger.
Yeah.
And I really like his philosophy. Big team player, very humble guy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously very successful as well. It's obviously the summits have been good to him, and the altitude's been good to him in a way. He's had some close calls, but he always seems to make the right decision.
Yeah, well,
he's turned back on a few mountains.
Well, he has that philosophy, doesn't he? The summit is optional, getting down is mandatory.
Yeah,
and I think that's
exactly.
No mountain, no experience is worth losing your life over.
No, exactly.
It's you're there for an enriching time. A lot of the funniest thing, like when I'm like feeling at my laziest, I always say, do you know what? I always wish that I had summited a mountain in my past, and that's because part of what I love looking forward and taking on these challenges. But one of the things that I really love doing is this type of forum, is giving people the benefit of what I've done. And I always say I've summited Toubkal 2.5 times. It's not even the biggest. I've been way higher than the summit of Toubkal on multiple occasions. But on that time, on that mountain, the odds weren't in my favor. And you've got to play the odds, because I thought, I could get sick, I could fall, I could hurt my teammates, I could, maybe have to be chopped off. It would have been irresponsible to go up. And I think that's the one thing. You can't get too caught up in the dream of the summit, and the emotion of it all. When you're on the mountain, you have to be very present, very aware of the dangers, and rational.
Mm-hmm.
The dream of the summit is for before and after.
Yeah.
The glorification of it is for before and after. I think when you're on the mountain, you've got to be very present, very mindful, very, like you said, very rational, and make correct decisions.
Yeah, which is not always easier. Excuse me. It's not always easier altitude. And if you've been on the Tuesday Tune-In for a while, we obviously talk about the basics, about hydration, about speed, about looking after your body. But sometimes the thing that can get affected is your mind more than anything, and that can make you do loads of crazy things. Which is important to recognize. Kind of switching gears a bit onto the altitude stuff. Is that if you can recognize some of those things, like, okay, you might have the odd headache, you might be feeling a little bit nauseous, you might, that kind of feeling when you stand up really quick and you're a bit like you start seeing stars. Sometimes that can happen. If your body's acclimatizing, and maybe not as well as it could have been, because whether this is your first trip or your 10th, you've got to acclimatize the same way. Carl, we can use speed. Not that type, Carl. Different. Maybe I should talk about speed of ascent, I should say. But yeah, a good point. It is interesting taking all those factors in, but knowledge, isn't it? Just being aware of those things, hopefully can be the difference. Sometimes,
100%.
Switching as well, because you mentioned, and I think Diane mentioned as well, around, obviously she's got Island Peak, and Diane was on our winter skills in the Cairngorms this weekend. Just gone, looked fantastic. I was very jealous. It looked fantastic. I was out and about this weekend, but that looked phenomenal. Great to see the pictures in from Smurf and Dowie as well, and absolutely fantastic. And again, part of the journey, Diane. Obviously going to take on, Island Peak. I think later this year, isn't it? Remind me, Diane. I know it's been a while. And it's interesting because we talk about comfort zones and, Island Peak, serious peak, over 6,000 meters. It's not the easiest, I would say. And I would say it is out of most people's comfort zone if you haven't done a peak like that. But I think people say escaping the comfort zone, which is something I used to say a lot of, actually. But I think over the years, it's more about expanding your comfort zone through knowledge, through learning, through skills.
Yeah.
Again, winter skills weekend, even just any time you're on the snow or with ice axe crampons, winter conditions, steep terrain, and the altitude.
Yeah.
You are expanding your comfort zone quite big.
No,
quite
100%. And I think a recent analogy that I've got with that is I learned to ski over the last few years.
Yeah.
And on my most recent ski trip, it did actually occur to me, we did a really steep red, and it was the first run that we ever did. First red we did in the morning. First run we ever did.
Love that. It was easier. It was.
And I remember thinking, like, when I was halfway down, how comfortable I was with actually getting down that slope. And if you rewind, like, even 12 months ago, I'd have probably kicked off the skis and walked down.
Yeah.
And I think I was just reflecting on it, and I was thinking, like, what's changed? Because my ability, sure, has changed, and I think it's the learning and the process and the passage of time that you need to allow to be able to do these things effectively. So what Diana's done with regards to Island Peak, it wasn't the first trip that she did.
No.
She's done EBC, Kilimanjaro, she's been to Toubkal, Annapurna, and I think that if you
pretty much done them all, Machu Picchu.
Yeah, I mean, if you took the Diane that hadn't done any of those things,
exactly,
and put her on Island Peak, there's a chance that she would summit and get back down, but it wouldn't be comfortable.
Yeah,
you wouldn't really feel like you were experiencing and climbing the mountain, more surviving the mountain.
Yeah,
and that's how I used to feel on those reds. I would feel like I was surviving
down,
not actually like
bloody hell,
not like actually skiing them.
Yeah,
and it's the same with trekking. Loads of people, I think, when you are going to take on a 6,000 meter peak or take on anything with significant risk, it's training and knowledge really go a long way to kind of making you the success that you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, really itchy eye. Again, expanding my comfort zone there. It also, as well, I think key, you mentioned there, expanding comfort zones, is also to do with the terrain as well, like getting used to being on certain types of terrain. Like, using skiing as an example, obviously steepness, depends what the conditions are like, how narrow it is, what's the weather like, the surrounding conditions. And it takes a while to get used to them. Like, I know Sam was one of our good friends who was on our ski trip a few weeks ago on the weekend. And he said a good thing as well, is that actually going through all those difficult conditions makes you better.
Yeah.
Because then when you can see, which, it's nice to be able to see, isn't it, when you're skiing? But when it's really bad conditions, it does hone the senses. And I think that can go for anything. In the mountains, when if you get good in bad weather, you can do anything.
No, exactly. And I think with that as well, we always talk about like the managed risk, there's managed risk and sort of unmanaged risk.
Yeah. And
I think that there comes a time on any mountain, regardless of the activity, where you need to look around, look at the conditions and think and make the sensible call.
Yeah.
That, too risky to proceed, no visibility, risk of avalanche, risk of crevasse, I'm going to turn back and make the safe decision. I think that always plays a part in what we do as well.
Definitely.
But you have to kind of push that envelope a little bit in order to get comfortable, because if you never go out in low vis, in bad weather,
you just be
in
a
snow,
fair weather.
You'll be great at fair weather trekking, and in the summer you'll be a monster. But then we know the difference. Actually, we do a little, we call it the 10 miler, but I've actually changed it to 7 now because the 3 miles.
You ditched that flat bit.
Yeah, it's boring. But we, that is a hike which, we use as a training hike, and it can be done in about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then last winter, we decided that because it was snow, we were going to go up and do it.
Epic.
The exact same trip. How different was it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was amazing conditions.
It turned a 3 hour jaunt into like a 5.5 hour slog, and we were battered when we got to the end of it.
But you know what? It's healthy to do that.
Yeah,
I think I think as human beings, we have a lot of creature comforts in our life, a lot of things that we have easy. That maybe as kind of Homo sapiens we weren't kind of created that way with
Yeah.
comfort. I think it's good to put yourself into those conditions. Again, expanding your comfort zones.
Yeah, no, 100%.
We do a lot of cold water therapy over the years. Still get flu.
Yeah, that was last week. Yeah,
but you can't help that.
And I still feel terrible this week.
But isn't it
Yeah.
interesting though what that does? Because naturally, not only building your resistance, okay, it helps your body as well, but you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah, no,
it's healthy to do that every now and again.
You've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think,
Yeah.
in order to do these trips. I think because there comes a point, runners call it like hitting the wall.
Yeah.
Cyclists call it like bonking. Skiers call it crashing. But
hopefully not into a tree.
Yeah, there comes a point where you are going to be. There's when people say how hard is Killy or how hard is EBC, it's always a two-pronged answer, because one of the things is, look, you'll have days where you feel great and it's amazing, and then you'll have days where you do hit that wall.
Yeah.
And that's when things become uncomfortable. You might have a blister, or you might have a bit of a cold, or the altitude might be kicking your ass that day and you've got like a headache.
Yeah.
And those are the days where, if you've trained your mind to be uncomfortable, so either if you're cold water therapy, or you've gone out in winter, or you've gone and exercised in bad weather, those things help your body cope with the stress, because you've trained your body to deal with the stress.
Yeah, so it almost as well, what happens then is that it's not under stress anymore.
Yeah.
It's comfortable. It's more like, because it hasn't got to think about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as like Dave's a mountain biker, doing a lot of downhill stuff. I reckon the first, your first year of doing that, you're thinking a lot about what you do, whereas now I bet it comes naturally to you.
It's one of those. It's one of those things you have to again repeatedly do.
Yeah.
So, and I actually do think that's the same with mountains. You have to, if you don't go hiking for 6 months, and then you go out and you do like a really hard weather peak, you're going to have a way worse time, no matter how experienced you are. I think it is about that continual suffering.
You've never. I think you're right though, Dave. You hit a nail on the head there. Just because you do it and you succeed once doesn't mean it stops. You have to continually keep developing. Like something Diane there mentioned, Smurf and Dewi. It looked epic that day. I was like, oh man, that looks fantastic on the Cairngorm summit. But something that Smurf talks about a lot is that before any winter season, before he even steps on the snow, he gets his crampons out, puts them onto his boots, starts to almost practice before the winter happens. Just he's familiarizing himself again. This is Smurf, he's been and done a lot. He's a very, very experienced mountain guide.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of thinking even the best still develop their skills and still continuously remind themselves about what they need to do while they're on the mountain.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got to think about it then. It's almost like you're doing it, it's almost second nature.
Yeah.
And it's a really, what is it? I heard a saying the other day, was it that, was it good fishermen, when there's no fishing, they tend to their nets. As in, like, they're always constantly, even when they're not doing what they the fishing stuff, they're tweaking their nets, they're improving it, they're doing that. And I think it's interesting. And for us, for us trekkers, we're not on trips all the time, but in the interim, as part of the training, the preparation, let's practice different stuff. Let's put ourselves in a situation. Let's be going on Kilimanjaro. Let's do a night hike. Let's do that kind of thing. And put yourself in winter conditions if you're thinking about going on if you're doing Toubkal in winter, or you're going on any peak that involves being on winter conditions. It's absolutely fantastic way of doing it. Something as well, and I sort of, again, switching gears, is that, and part of my notes here around comfortability is also as well knowing what you're getting yourself into. And I think more so because, using kind of trigger words, because I think, generally in society we can say certain words and people go, ooh, things like Everest, things like K2, there's automatic, people have these words and they have an impression on those words already. But I think sometimes it's also worth, even though it's danger and managed danger, it's also very different to what people read and consume. Like in the news, people say about Everest, there's obviously there's rubbish, there's obviously danger, but a lot of it is that you've got to separate the two industries of the mountaineering industry and the trekking industry.
That's it.
And they're very different.
It's because the trekking industry doesn't really have its own press. because trekking isn't as glamorous perhaps as summiting Mount Everest or any of the other 8,000ers. And I think, we have had a couple of people. I think there was during that viral picture that went out 2019 or so of the big queue on
Everest,
Everest.
wasn't it? Yeah, remember that? Yeah.
I remember we actually had a customer call up and say they didn't want to go on their trip to base camp because
that's why they cancelled, didn't they? Yeah.
And I think you are right to make the distinction between the two, because you'll hear about Everest. It's possible that you could die from altitude sickness. And whilst that risk isn't zero, it's not the same risk. It's the difference between your risk of dying driving a Formula One car and nipping to the shops, perhaps. It's like,
it's a very good.
Actually, someone will probably say, "Actually, I think you'll find." But my point being is that one is an extreme sport and one of them isn't.
Yeah.
And I think it is important to acknowledge the difference between the two. That when we go trekking, we're not going to be summiting Everest. There are lots of misconceptions because, it's just the nature of the media these days. No one sells newspapers or gets clicks by saying, "Do you know what, everything's great."
Talk about newspapers. This was I was saving this. So this was actually, I think this is from the Financial Times.
It is. It's pink, isn't it?
It's pink. But yeah, this is Everest in a week. Look at that. Look at that little headline there, Everest in a week. And it was really interesting, actually. It was about a company. Oh, excuse me. And again, this is very different. This is about the summit, not base camp. But Lucas Furtenbach, he's an Austrian mountain guy. He's been doing it. Charges pretty much about 200 grand to climb Everest, right? But yeah, just basically about doing it in a week with using xenon gas.
Yeah, I looked into it. I mean, to be honest, half of me doesn't really have anything against using technology and science, because I did read that the amount of xenon they're having is
it's quite low, right?
It's very low. It's not dangerous.
Not that I'm a scientist and I know really what xenon is.
This is all me parroting what I've read. So I think that what it does is it stimulates the body's production of EPO.
Yeah.
Erythropoietin, which is like the famous.
So Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, that's it. So they take. I think it stimulates the body's natural production of that hormone, which produces more red blood cells.
Interesting.
And that's how they do it. I don't know the difference between doing that and just taking EPO.
Right.
I wonder, are they just not taking EPO because that seems like that's known as cheating in sports?
Yeah.
And the moment you take EPO, there's a massive negative connotation.
Yeah.
You only got to Everest because you cheated, because you blood doped. But then if you take xenon, which really does trigger a similar process, I'm not sure if it's to the same extent, but you're just kind of one step further down from that. It's the same kind of thing.
Interesting.
And it is interesting. I got no problem at all with helping people acclimatise, making the mountain safer, reducing the amount of people that don't come down from the top. That's fine.
Yeah.
The issue I took with it is this Everest in a week.
Exactly. It
feels
quick, doesn't it?
You sit at home and you wait for a weather window, and then you get a call, and then you jump over and make it up there and get quick. I think for me, it reduces summiting Everest to a box ticking exercise for your ego. Now, there's always a degree of that. I have that. I want to say I've climbed Everest for my own ego and to tick a box, but I also want to value the experience. And I want the adventure, and I want to understand what it takes to summit Everest.
Yeah.
Now, I might be using oxygen, and I might have Sherpa support and base camp support, so I don't know what it's like to do it alpine style. But you know what? I get a damn sight closer to knowing what it's like than if I chop her in already acclimatized due to whatever method and then run to the top. You can't honestly say you know what it takes to summit Everest. So to me, I don't know, something of the majesty is lost.
Not something we would do, is it? I know what you mean. I'm kind of with Dave on that. I think naturally there's that, maybe a little bit old school in terms of going, doing the tried and tested, rotations and things like that. Certainly when it comes to it. It was just an interesting, whenever you see headlines like Everest in a week, again, it kind of, you're talking about, expanding your knowledge. You're like, okay, what does that mean? But I think, again, it's just that differentiation as well between clearly the mountaineering side, which is, is a mad industry, and the trekking and the kind of, I say lower peaks. They're still 6,500 meters. They're still not easy. They're really difficult, but a different world. And sometimes, again, that comes with risk, that there's a difference in risk between those two industries.
You know what it reminded me of?
Yeah.
A little bit, and this isn't to denigrate what they're doing. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't do what they're doing. I'm just saying it doesn't appeal to me personally.
Yeah.
Fill your boots. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. I wish you the best.
Time's precious.
And a safe summit. However, what it reminds me of is, when you read about these Arctic explorers and these Antarctic explorers, you read about Scott and Amundsen and the romance and the daring do and all of that. And then you read about that Top Gear episode where Clarkson and May drove to the North Pole and they just got there. Like, that was a fun era of TV, but it's not going to live long in history, is it?
Yeah.
And I just think if I'm doing an adventure, part of me wants to tap in to that.
Exactly.
To what the adventure is. I'm not necessarily tapping into, like, I wonder how easily I can get to the summit of Everest.
Yeah.
That doesn't appeal to me. What appeals to me is, like, I wonder what it takes to climb Everest. I'd love to get a taste of that. And
how it's really done.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Again, I don't want to sound like some moral pedestal. If someone said to me, well, you know what, I've got the money and I want to get there safely and back down in a week, and that seems to be this, I'll be like, absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah,
I wish you the best, and I'll be following you and hope you get there.
A big respect to Lucas as well. Obviously, he's been doing it for more than a few years now, but since we've been around, and that's what some people are prepared to do. But I know you mean it's definitely for us. I think the tried and tested acclimatizing properly. It doesn't matter if you're going to base camp or you're going to the summit. You acclimatize properly. You've got a better chance of getting down, especially if the equipment breaks, because if any of that goes wrong, you've got nowhere really to go. So again, we talk about risk and danger and unmanaged danger and managed danger. It's a lot easier to manage risk when you're proper acclimatized, and you've been there. You're acclimatized emotionally as well.
Yeah,
I feel sometimes when you go to a foreign country, especially if it's your first time, it takes a little bit to acclimatize to actually being in the country. Nothing to do with the air. It's just about being, eating the certain food that you're eating, also getting used to what you're drinking, because you're drinking a lot of water a day and you're peeing a lot. The surroundings, that takes a little bit of time to acclimatize too, that you've got to think about. It's not until you're there for a few weeks, you'll be like, this is my home.
It's weird as well. Like, one of the things I always think about as well is, I think Lucas has been very, very successful. I don't think he's, not that I'm aware of, has ever been part of any sort of controversy on the mountain.
No, he's pretty good. He's pretty fair.
What I always wonder though is, like, if one of those Everest in a week climbers does get into trouble or anything can happen.
It's risky, eh?
It's like you kind of undo the message you're trying to achieve. I would be, and it is that speed element of the equation that I disagree with. Like, Everest in a week, I got no problem with the science, and if it's safe and legal, then explore whatever options you want to. But what you're doing is making the job of climbing. But then again, maybe I'm just, the other half of my brain says, you know what, Dave, maybe you're just behind the times and this guy's light years ahead of you in terms of what it means. Like, it took Hillary a lot longer to climb Everest than it does the climbers today. So maybe he's just light years ahead of me. I don't know. I'm just saying it doesn't appeal to me emotionally.
You know what we need? A bottle of Xenon gas.
Why not?
We're acclimatized here. Definitely. Thanks as well for all your comments. I know there was one, and I know we're kind of coming into a bit of Q&A stuff as well. And any questions, guys, do throw them in. I know a few people as well. I think Sheila mentioned, you mentioned crampons. Will we need them in EBC in March? Highly likely won't, but we have had trips where there's been significant snowfall in March.
Yeah.
It has happened, the last few years. And the team do carry them. They're more, obviously there's lots of different versions of crampons. These are ones that just go over your normal trekking boot. So you've got, you don't need full rigid crampons for this. When you go to EBC, normally you don't need any form of crampon on the way to EBC. It's just walk-ins, not technical at all. But if there is significant snowfall, just from a safety point of view, the guys will have, they're like yak tracks. They go around, like rubber, basically. They go around your boot and give you a bit of grip then when it's getting a bit slippery.
Yeah.
But good question though, Sheila. Obviously, again, it's just comfortable to know, isn't it? Those risks are going to be managed. Same as well to anyone that goes on any of our high passes. That's the same process. So, sometimes you might not need them. Depends on the conditions, and it's different every year. Depending on, how windy it's been over the winter, because it blows all the kind of snow off. And then it depends how much snow you happen in the monsoon season then, where you get a lot big dump of rain, obviously higher up it's snow. And then the autumn, then sometimes you do have a lot of snow on the high passes, but it depends. If it's been windy, it kind of blows it all off, and it's on ice, which then you need some sort of better grip. And sometimes they put rope there as well, and it just depends on what the situation is. But most of the time, you won't need them.
Yep. Richard asks, what size bag do you recommend? Is 40 litres big enough? So I'm assuming you're talking about your day pack that you'll carry every day while trekking. If that's the case, 40 litres is probably a bit too big, actually. Most of the time we recommend about 25, 30 litres for a day pack.
Yeah.
You're not required to carry a huge amount of equipment beyond like a spare, your down jacket, gloves, camera, food, snacks, that type of thing. 30 litres is more than adequate. I think if you do 40 litres and you start to go that high, you run the risk of sort of making your pack too heavy or unnecessarily heavy.
You've been there.
Yeah. No, a lot of people that have, they've done like, say, Namshi to Tengboche, and they've done it in shorts and t-shirt all day, and they've carried like 9 kilos worth of gear in the bag. It's not necessary. And they only did that because they had the space to fill. When you see an empty bag, you're like, that can't be enough. But if you've got 10 litres less, it looks fine. So, hopefully that helps, Rich.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Sam, how you doing as well? Sam Weller. Good to see you on. Our very own Gelly Sherpa is looking at conquering Everest. He is. I literally messaged him about 2 or 3 days ago because he's such a character, and he's got some really good videos and really good stuff. We were just messaging, and he was telling me about his Everest journey, and he's going to be doing it this spring. So, it's a big part of his, obviously he's a very, very experienced guide anyway, but this is next part of his journey. Yeah. Again, even our guides, they lots of them do summit Everest and do get on the peaks. Some of them just stick to the trekking. That's what they're good at. But some of them have, aspirations to do more. And I think Gello as well will do the International Mountain Guide qualification as well, which would be really good for him.
Yeah.
So I'm looking excited to follow his journey. Around, he's got a really good team. Obviously, Anuj, he's obviously with us. Hopefully he'll still be doing some of our trips, but he's probably taking a season off to go and essentially take on Everest, which is awesome.
Awesome.
Nice to see people still following their guys' journeys afterwards.
Yep. Simon Knox has said, would you advise taking Diamox, or would you wait till symptoms occur? Honestly, I wouldn't really advise one way or another, because it is a prescription medication. What I'll tell you is, anecdotally, there's 2 ways to take it. One is you start taking it. If I use Everest Base Camp as an example, most people would take half a tablet when they arrive at Lukla, and then half a tablet in the evening, and then follow that protocol, half in the morning, half in the evening. And then if symptoms do occur or get worse, they'll up it to a full tablet in the morning or full in the evening. Another way, which is the way that I personally have experience doing it, is that I would rather not take any medication that I don't need.
Yeah.
So I'll have it in my pack, and I'll start with no intention of taking Diamox. I used it on Kilimanjaro, actually, and when I got to Lava Tower, I took half a tablet, and I followed that protocol then, half in the morning, half in the evening, until I got back down. I think the decision is really up to yourself. But those are kind of the 2 things, and it's just down to your experience and your comfort level, and peace of mind dictates really what you would want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Good shout, Dave. And Diamox is one that our kind of opinions changed over the years, because back talking 8, 9, 10 years ago, I used to be dead against it, but I think having seen it literally change people's trips, like even my own family being on trips, and close friends, loads of Ever trekkers who probably wouldn't have got to places like Everest Base Camp and the summit of Kili without it. Opinions have definitely changed, and it is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Dave's right, like it's there, and obviously we can't kind of recommend use it because it's obviously medication, but from our experience, we've seen it work better reactively than if you're taking it going into a trip. That's what we've seen. Obviously, everyone's different, in terms of some people take it from the start and then they go ahead and they're fine. We just think that from a managed point of view, if you do start taking it and you start to feel altitude symptoms come on, you haven't got many places to go, other than really turning around or descending. If you're on Diamox and you're still struggling, so it becomes a bit more difficult then. Whereas if you're trying to acclimatize properly anyway, by drinking enough, by going, safe speed, looking after your body and your body being in a good place and hydrating, then if you do start to anything happens, you can take it then, and you've got places to go. You can, as Dave said, start with half a tablet. That's not really doing anything. You could up that. You've got those places you can go. So I think it's better that way than the other way. But a lot of people, there are people out there and other companies and other people in the industry that do it. They say actually do it proactively. So it depends, but it's always good as well just to chat with like a travel health clinic. I say go to your GP, and always good to speak to your GP, but a lot of them aren't really high altitude medically trained in that way. Some are. So they are very risk averse from offering Diamox as well. Yeah. So just something to be aware of it. Again, just from risk and things like that, obviously they're risk averse, so they're going to be advising against it. Whereas someone who knows a bit more about altitude will understand what it actually does and the history of it, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Nice.
Awesome. I think that's the cues.
That is the cues, isn't it? Well, look, just to kind of round things off, really, I know we're talking about, managed risks, unmanaged risks, dangers, comfort zone, and the dangers of trekking at high altitude. I think essentially the way we always approach it is that, it does come down to expanding that knowledge of yourself and experience and growing and learning about it. I think hopefully today's been a little bit useful. I know we share a lot of this stuff anyway, but hopefully that helps you in anything you do. Mm-hmm. Both myself and David, we do a lot of traveling, and to some people just getting on a plane can be expanding their comfort zone. To some people just getting on a hike in Brecon Beacons or in Scotland or whatever is expanding that comfort zone. Whatever that is for you, it's just part of enjoyment of life, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
getting out 100%. And having fun.
I think living an adventurous lifestyle, doesn't mean that you're at base camp every other week.
Yeah,
it just means getting out there, pushing your comfort zone, putting yourself through some difficulties and taking on some new training and skills. Sorry, the flu is getting to me.
You need to expand your lungs.
and that's what it's about. And I think generally we'll all live happier, healthier, and better lives if we do adopt an adventurous lifestyle, become comfortable with a certain amount of risk, and take life on in that respect.
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of the journey, isn't it? I don't know who said that earlier. I think it was Rich actually, or Marky V. I think someone said it. But guys, I hope that's been useful today. Nice kind of summarize, and we'll be back next week. Lots of exciting things going on. Don't forget, obviously January. Can't believe we've only got a few days left. Unbelievable. But last few days really to make sure that you use the New Year promotion. I think we've got £150 off trips at the moment. I think just used new 150, and you'll be able to get £150 off trips. But there's only a few days left, so if you are looking to book on, get going, definitely. And obviously we've reduced the deposits by 50% in January as well, so it's only £100. So if anyone is looking at future stuff, future dangers, future travel, future adventures, then get in there. Yep. We'd obviously love to have you on a journey. But Dave, nice to have you back.
Yeah, no, back, mate, back. Not quite firing on all cylinders, but back.
He's back.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Take it easy, guys. Bye.
See ya. Bye.